Welcome to a packed McKellar Park on a beautiful afternoon where we are just 90 or so minutes away from deciding which of these two teams will make it through to semi-final football. Into the hot spot, the header is good, as is the save from James for the second time. It's Rachel Lowe who gets the party started. Now Pollicina, that's a great ball. Ella O'Grady makes it to Sasha Grove to get one back for Canberra, and she can. Skewed pass, O'Grady. It's a wonderful finish. Melbourne Victory march on.
It's all ready to go in Brisbane. The winner earning the right to take on the Wellington Phoenix. A space in front of her, looks to poke it ahead for Kijah Stephenson. And this sold-out crowd at Spencer Park are delighted. She's got two. The Roar double their lead. Is this the third? It is. For the first time in 12 years, the Brisbane Roar are triumphant in a Ninja A-League final. It's party time now in Brisbane.
Well, we are down to 4 in the Ninja A-League as we head into the semi-finals. Hello and welcome to Dub Zone. I'm Amy Duggan. As we welcome A-League's commentator Teo Pellizzeri and former Matilda Alicia Ferguson. Great to have you both with us this week. Aisha, what a fantastic round it was. We are at the pointy end of the season.
Yeah, it's been a great season. I think there's probably been, there's always twists and turns in the dub. I feel like there's always something that throws things up. There's always talking points. But, yeah, I think well-deserved teams and there's been some great games.
You enjoy the weekend, T?
Well, yes, and we're down to 4. Of course, there is a tomorrow for anyone that loses this weekend because we go into two-legged ties, and important to clarify, no away goals rule. It is pure aggregate. This weekend, it's all about trying to establish a lead and get ready for those second legs.
Well, let's take a look back and we'll begin with 6th place Melbourne Victory, knocking off 3rd place Canberra United 3-1 at McKellar Park. Victory coach Jeff Hopkins said no one would want to be playing them come finals time, and we saw why on the weekend. Each, they certainly came out firing.
Yeah, they did, and I think Jeff's probably, well, he's right. You know, he's the coach of the team. I think what the Victory would have been a bit frustrated with earlier in the season, a bit of inconsistency. We know how clinical they have been in front of goal. We know how strong, disciplined, compact they are defensively. We probably have only started seeing that towards the back end of the season, and it was a really accomplished performance by the Victory.
A great little back heel there, Teo. A fantastic cross and into the far post. So hard for the goalkeeper to get to.
Well, we see from how Victory scored the first 2 goals that it was entirely predictable, and things that we'd even flagged last week. We said don't leave Claudia Bunge unmarked at a set piece. It doesn't go down as a headed goal, but she heads it into the path of Rachel Lowe, who scores. The high press, Grace Maher starting, which was a bit of a surprise, wins the ball back in the attacking half, and then that leads to the build-up for Pollicina. And then Holly Furphy and the Victory wingers were credited for being one of the great strengths in this game. Lays off a fantastic assist, and Ella O'Grady flies for the header, and a bit of self-sacrifice there, and that desire to win. We heard Kayla Morrison speak about last year players putting their heads where they shouldn't belong in the air, and it's one of the Jeff Hopkins traits, and I think his celebration at full time reflected just how much of him he saw out there in his team and the direct influence of some really good coaching over that long break into the elimination final.
I think originally we thought Canberra might get the job done, but Jeff Hopkins coming out cheekily saying, watch out, we're the ones to watch, and they certainly put out a performance, didn't they? Let's hear from Victory coach Jeff Hopkins, who spoke post-match.
Like we said today before we went out, there was an atmosphere in the change rooms that we hadn't had all season, and they actually took that out onto the park today, and yeah, we weren't going to get beaten today, that was for sure.
Well, Jeff, certainly not afraid to make some big calls early either. Ella O'Grady started in favour of Kennedy White. White has been short of goals toward the back end of the season, Ish. Was it a big call? Are you surprised by that one at all?
No, not really. I mean, Ella O'Grady has amazing potential. She's struggled with a few injuries, and when you've got someone who's not necessarily in form, why not take a risk? But I think Jeff said it and summed it up perfectly, the atmosphere. And I know, you know, there were some post-match interviews earlier in the season with Kayla Morrison. Kayla Morrison does not pull any punches about where the Victory were at, their performances. They've continued to grow, to build through this season. I think, you know, as pundits, we were surprised at maybe a bit of an inconsistent start. But they've rectified that and they came up with a really solid performance, and great to see young players getting an opportunity in the A-League. It's what the A-League shows year on year, that the experience and the younger players getting that opportunity to show their talent, and I think she did a great job.
I mean, we can praise them for being a team that wins in a high-pressure situation and in a knockout game, because that's what they're built to do. Our criticisms of Victory were you put together a squad that should have challenged for Asia, that should have challenged for the Premiership, and those criticisms aren't invalidated by winning a one-off knockout game.
And they were lucky, Teo, to make it into the six, but they certainly stepped up this weekend. Holly Furphy's second season in the league has been a little up and down, but she was everywhere in attack for Victory on this one.
Well, her productivity in terms of goals and assists may not have been what Victory fans were hoping for coming into the season, but she just ran rings around Canberra in this game, and I think defending in wide areas has quietly been one of Canberra's big concerns for a lot of the season, because their wing-backs can be quite adventurous getting up the field, and Holly Furphy should have scored that one-on-one earlier in the game, but it was an excellent performance, and the cross for O'Grady is just a delight.
Yeah, I mean, she's got natural talent, and I agree with you, Teo. I think probably, again, that word inconsistency, I feel like that's the word where I would sum up Victory's season, and I feel like they would probably sum that up themselves, but I think she's a great talent. I love seeing her at full flight, going down, taking on players, getting those balls. Her delivery into the box has been good, probably needed to be elevated, and she showed that on the weekend against Canberra.
And the home crowd didn't help Canberra. Sadly, their season comes to an end at the same stage as last year. Let's hear from the head coach, Anthony Jagranek, after the loss.
Look, I think after the sting of this game goes away, we can't, dismiss the fact that we were third place this year over 22 rounds, and from just creeping into finals last year to third place, first time in 10 years this year. Super proud of the girls, the way that we played football, the way they held themselves in the community as well this year. It's sensational, and I'm really happy and proud to be a part of that and the success that we've had mostly over the season.
Talking about all the positives there, and there were plenty of them to take out of the season, Ish, but falling short again in the elimination final stage.
Yeah, it might be the last time you see Canberra United. I think that's the saddest thing about this story. Having played in the W League and against Canberra United since the inception, I think it would be an absolute disaster to see them leave the Ninja A-League. I think playing at McKellar Park, you know what it's like. Parochial crowd, great venue, great support from the Canberrans as well. And I don't want it to be the last time that we see Canberra United.
Of course, a standalone side, Teo. Is this actually a possibility that we might not see Canberra?
Oh, look, that last off-season, the off-season before, we've had exactly the same thing. Pressure and time is what causes the decisions. Everyone wants decisions to be made so people can actually build their lives, sign multi-year contracts, but we know where the league is at. These are the circumstances that we live in at the moment. And Canberra, credit to Jagranek, he has created the bubble around this team. The existential crisis could be Canberra's discourse every week of the season if they chose for it to be, and it's only the single-mindedness and the determination of their players to focus on trying to win a trophy this season, which has kept the noise out. Inevitably, if it's a last game of the season scenario, it starts to creep in. But I don't think that was a factor in this game. I think Victory just outplayed them.
No, of course not. And I think, they're still professional footballers and they still love playing and professional football, and that's their job, and they needed to do that. And I think Anthony Jagranek did a great job this season, and I think it's just, it's what we want to continue at that club, because there's talent in that talent pool in Canberra, and they're such a vital part of the ecosystem of women's football.
And the history.
And the history,
as well. Let's talk about play on the field for a moment, because one of the shining lights of the Canberra season was Sasha Grove.
Yeah, I loved watching Sasha Grove. I think, to your point about the wing-backs really getting forward, Sasha Grove, amazing pace. This transition from a corner, little bit of luck. I think the Victory defenders will be a little bit frustrated, maybe a tiny bit of confusion, but look at that change of pace from Sasha Grove. Loved seeing her. I feel like this has been her best season. I think that she's really showed a level of maturity and an ability and a real positivity and probably a belief and a trust from Anthony to go forward. You've got something to give us in an attacking sense. And yes, OK, that might leave us a little bit susceptible defensively, but that's also the job of our other defenders who aren't that don't have that attacking mindset.
How did you wrap up the on-field performance, Teo, from Canberra?
Well,
patchy.
They were coming back into the game and really should have been level at half-time, and it's a totally different game if the teams go into the rooms at 2-2 rather than 1 goal down. And Canberra, I mean, we see the missed header from Emma Hawkins here. You know, an import striker's got to bury that, simple as. I mean, if that's Sienna Dale or Chiara Di Demizio, I expect an Australian striker to score, never mind an import. But as the second half... First 5 minutes, the last time they played, they copped that Kennedy White goal against the run, went 1-0 down. This time they copped the Ella O'Grady second goal. They go 3-1 down, 2-goal hole, weren't able to get back in the game. Dale was a good catalyst coming off the bench, but it was too big a gap to peg back. Ish, what did you think of how Canberra actually tried to get back in the game?
Yeah, I think they tried to get back in, but it's the big moments that count. That Hawkins miss, I think, that can be a massive change in momentum. And you see that, and it's not just Hawkins missing it. As a teammate, you're like, okay, right, we're still up against it here. How many more chances are we going to create? We have to be clinical. So it's not just like a singular moment, but the effect that actually has on you as teammates. You know this, Amy. It's not a conscious thing, but you do think, geez, we're up against it here.
Momentum.
Like, that was such a big momentum shift. And it could have been a momentum shift, and it was just a missed opportunity.
And it's the self-perpetuating nature of Victory saying, we've been here before, we know how this works. And in the second half, they're defending, they're absorbing of the chances. It became normal to them because so many of this team have been there and done it before. Canberra chasing the game just weren't able to come back.
Sounds like a case of experience, having won out on the day, and we will wait and see with bated breath what happens to this Canberra side over the off-season. But let's move to Brisbane now, where a jam-packed Spencer Park saw the side surge to victory over Adelaide with 3 second-half goals. You're in comms, Ish, for this one. Brisbane did it pretty comfortably in the end.
In the end, look, Adelaide started really strongly, and I think there was I talk about that momentum shift. Erin Healy rolled her ankle really badly, went off for a period of time, and I don't think Adelaide could get themselves going again. Erin was, bless her, like limping around as best she could. Kijah Stephenson just came into her own. Like, we know the quality of Kijah Stephenson. She's been out with injury, with an ACL. She loves to get the ball, try and turn and face forward. I think Tish Woods played some incredible through balls, breaking a line. We talk about breaking a line in football, really cutting through the defence. Great to see Amy Medwin on the score sheet for the third week in the rows. But I think, yeah, it was a real shame. There was a definite momentum shift when Erin picked up the injury, and I think for Adelaide, they maybe just lost a bit of focus of who their outlet and who their focal point could be. Not taking anything away from Brisbane, because I think Momo Hayashi, Kijah Stephenson and Alicia Woods in midfield were exceptional in that game.
Kijah Stephenson definitely growing throughout this season and getting it right at the pointy end, that is for sure. Teo, what did you make of Brisbane's performance versus Adelaide, and do you agree with Ish?
Ish, I'm surprised to think that this game was ever close. Chloe Lincoln makes 1 save from Erin Healy, and having a lack of a focal point, I don't think forgives their midfield and their defence being steamrolled. If Brisbane had scored before half-time, I was looking through the record books to see what the biggest margin in a final was. That's how dominant Brisbane were in this game. I can't believe you thought Adelaide were in this at any point.
Yeah, for the first 10 minutes, Teo. Before Erin Healy rolled her ankle and went off, they were showing some signs of actually keeping possession. And I think she went off for a good 3 or 4 minutes, and it just, everything that they were trying to do. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Brisbane. I think Brisbane played the game really well, and with the deserved winners, I just think it was a big blow to Adelaide for one of their only goal scorers that they can rely on to go down injured, to go off, and she struggled through the rest of the game, but she wasn't able to contribute a lot, and could have, had one of those moments. But I think we're agreeing. I definitely think Brisbane were the better team and deserved to win. I just thought that was a big loss for, as far as her mobility and ability to actually inject herself into the game. Erin Healy for Adelaide was a big loss.
And she carries a lot of that team a lot of the time, and is certainly a leader from the front. The scoreline, though, 3-0, and a very happy Alex Smith had this to say after the game.
Our first finals win in 14 years of the club. What does that mean for you, for the team to get the first finals win since 2014?
I'm sorry, what? First win in how long?
Since 2014 in
wow.
the finals.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. It's a great accomplishment for us, and yeah, we just love playing here. Love playing in front of these fans. I think it showed tonight how much we want it, and how much we want to go as far as we can.
Alex Smith there, a bit surprised by that statistic he was. And not surprising you, of course, Teo, the encyclopedia, knowing all of those stats inside and out. And speaking of stats, there's a player you wanted to highlight from Brisbane.
Well, Ish touched on it. Alicia Woods had 2 assists in this game. Now, this year we have the Clare Polkinghorne Medal. Last season, Alicia Woods was the top player in the Paramount Plus Player Index. So if the Clare Polkinghorne Medal had existed last season, she would be the reigning Clare Polkinghorne medalist. She's a very underrated player in terms of circulating the ball, reading the play, making intercepts, and she does have that ability to drive into the attacking half. I have no doubt that if the Gustafsson Andretta regime was still coaching the Matildas, she'd be capped by now. But what has she got to do to take her game to that next level, Ish? Is it someone who, after the body of work we've seen, 2 really good seasons back-to-back, will be thinking about an overseas move? Or do you think that maybe another year in the A-League to become a real leader of this Brisbane team is what she needs to take her name to the next level?
I think we've seen, to put yourself in the shop window for a Matilda's call-up, getting some overseas experience is really crucial. The A-League is a great breeding ground for our players, for development, for experience. I think going into an environment with other international players, different styles of play, living away from home and building that resilience as a full, complete footballer is really important. I think Alicia Woods was excellent against Adelaide, and exactly to your point, like, she's just pulling the strings, right? She's getting in. She wants the ball. She wants to just keep the ball moving, and she played some wonderful... There was the clip there where she was just constantly, ball at her feet, looking up, scanning. Like, the real qualities of an exceptional, creative midfielder, Alicia Woods has it, and I think it'd be a great experience for her to go overseas and experience just a new culture, a new style of play, and to really test herself as well.
It's just having that jump between the A-League to the international football level. It's just a stepping stone, I think, on the way, and I think you'll see a lot of our Ninja A-League stars doing that in the future, unless we start to strengthen the league a little bit more for them on that pathway. But it was interesting, wasn't it, not to see her pull the trigger a few more times at play the through ball, and obviously resulting in the Kijah Stephenson goal as well. We did talk about Adelaide's performance, or lacklustre performance as it was, and they bow out 1 round earlier than they did last season. Captain Ella Tonkin spoke post-match.
Yeah, I'd say it's been a season of ups and downs. We've had periods of really good success and then periods where we weren't as good. So it's been a rocky season, but I'm proud that we made the finals and we gave it all that we could tonight. Just really proud to be South Australian. We gave it everything we could tonight, and this is just fuel to the fire. We're going to come back even stronger next season, and I know the time will come for Adelaide. It really will.
Yeah, an emotional end for the Reds there, Ella Tonkin, looking towards the future. Teo, how did you assess their season?
I find Adelaide to be interesting because at times they looked like they were in the premiership chase. They finished on a 5-game winless streak, losing their last 4 in a row, which is, not the end of the season they wanted. But they will be well-resourced. A lot of their staff are full-time, and they see themselves as a destination club in the league. So many clubs have, resourcing issues, staffing issues. I don't think Adelaide have any of those problems, and I do think that if they are aggressive this off-season, they can build a title-winning team. The only query I do have is, other than Ilona Meleg making the under-20s, they did veer away from using their South Australian youth this season over import players, interstate players, that I'm not necessarily sure improved the team. Ish, if you're Adelaide, where do you go from here? A finals finish, yes, but a very disappointing end to the campaign.
Find a couple of decent strikers. I think Fiona Wirtz, we know, is tried and tested. I think Erin Healy offers a lot. I think Fiona Wirtz leaving, she definitely makes a positive impact for them going forward. There wasn't many other options as far as the list of goal scorers is concerned. There was Erin Healy, and then there was Fiona Wirtz. Fiona goes, and Erin, I still feel like Erin, I think she does a lot of work in wider areas. I'd love to see her be the focal point and for her to have balls provided to her, because I think she can finish, but they need more in the attacking sense.
Well, Healy's out of contract, so keeping her is going to be a massive challenge, especially with the money that's out there for someone with an American citizenship, and she's an Irish international. So keeping her would be a monumental coup if Adelaide find a way to get her to sign to a new contract. And as we've seen, import strikers are basically a roulette spin in the league these days. Some of them don't even score. So what do you think Adelaide need to do as far as engaging the South Australian talent to try and at least make getting into the finals sustainable? And if you get the right imports on top of it, that puts you over the top to win a title.
Same thing. Find some strikers. Like it's the age-old thing, right? You can build a really solid defensive structure, good in the midfield. If you can't find a striker that can score you 10 to 15 goals a season, whether that's a local or an import, it does not matter. There is no difference between that. It's the hardest job in football. It's why they get paid the most. It's why it's hard to keep them. When they're doing well, the problem is when they're doing well, someone else wants them and wants to pay them more. When they're not doing well, you've still got to pay them and you've got to find someone to replace them. So trying to find some up-and-coming talent, yeah, of course, I want that. Ella O'Grady, some of these raw players who you know that they need a lot of coaching support to build into their game and build that confidence. Being a goal scorer is a different mindset. You can have all the technical, tactical ability, but the mindset of a goal scorer is something different.
Spoken like a true striker.
Well, former striker. I ended up as a holding midfielder because, you know what, I ended up as a holding midfielder because I couldn't score goals. I could finish and I couldn't score, and I'm very blessed that I had a coach that recognised, and me personally, it's a really hard job. And when I was good at W League level, I was not good when I got to international level, could not hit the back of the net. And that's really hard. I say it all the time. We're so critical when strikers, forwards miss goals. It's a really hard job. There's a lot of pressure on the line. So I feel like I've been there, I've experienced it, and I realised that it wasn't for me. And actually becoming a holding midfielder prolonged my international career.
There you have it, right out of the word of a striker's mouth. Let's move on. A two-legged semi-final is next for Brisbane against Wellington. The first leg will be at Spencer Park on Sunday. Kick-off for this one at 5 p.m. in front of another sellout crowd. Geez, those tickets went quickly. The Phoenix are yet to beat the Raw in Brisbane, but they did manage a late draw against them back in round 11 this season. What are we expecting out of this one? Will it be Brisbane? Will it be the Phoenix?
Who knows? This is, we're back into finals football, obviously over two legs. Wellington chose to have the first leg away from home, which is quite interesting. I think they're two different teams now. Sian Fryer is not in that team now. I know, both of these, I don't know. I feel like it's like wiping the slate clean and starting again. It's really hard to go off retrospective results and performances when we come into this game.
2-2 in round 11. This ended up there, the highlights that we're watching. Teo, your thoughts on looking back at the season, and will the results matter come finals time?
Well, the second meeting was at the Cake Tin, not at Porirua Park, so that's the first difference. And it was the first game back after the Asian Cup break. Brisbane left Benty Jansen in Brisbane, and Tamiki Yallop played her first game back from the hamstring injury. So Wellington dominated this game. I think Brisbane almost put a line through this one and said, we're going to rest our key players, we're going to bring Meeks back, and we'll see what happens. But I feel as though this one doesn't hold quite as much weight as Wellington's poor away record in Queensland. There's something about the trip that does not sit well with them. How much can we read into, again, Alex Smith leaving Benty Jansen and Tamiki Yallop on the bench against Adelaide, not bringing them on until the game was well and truly over, just to get a few minutes in the legs? Is that the sort of dare that he will go with for a Wellington first leg? Or do you feel as though they've been left in cotton wool for the Adelaide game in order to potentially even start Meeks and start Jansen against Wellington?
Great question. I think that he was pretty confident to sit them on the bench and wrap them in cotton wool. I think Benty Jansen, I have rolled my ankle a lot of times, and I covered that game when she did it against Canberra, and it looked horrible. A bit like Erin Healy. It still gives me like this tummy feeling. And I was surprised that she was back and ready after that. However, it still takes a good 3 or 4 weeks, and you want to make sure that she's firing for when you need her. I think Meeks is the same. Meeks is, we know what Meeks can bring. We know her experience. We know her quality. But at the moment, it's still just managing her load. It's all about load, and it's not necessarily just the game load, it's the training load and making sure that they're ready and prepared. And it could have gone to extra time and penalties. I don't think Benty Jansen or Meeks would have been up for 120 minutes of football. So I think that was definitely in Alex Smith's mind.
Different case going into leg one of this. Bev Priestman, how will she approach it? Because I feel like she's all guns blazing.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think she is all guns blazing. I think she's been a breath of fresh air. It's great to see her back on the sideline coaching. I think she's done a great job at Wellington. It's not just her with the first team. We know what they're building at the Knicks. They're building a great academy system. She's made some very good signings for internationals. I think Brooke Nunn has been a good addition as well, coming from the Mariners. Brings that energy, that real feistiness as well. But I think this is going to be a really epic two-legged semi-final.
Wellington will go all out on this one. Brisbane go all out in the first one. Head-to-head, looking for the win early?
I'm still baffled as to why Wellington are playing a genuine away game as the first leg. I would have thought, make Brisbane travel, disrupt their momentum and benefit from the big home crowd to try and build a lead. I'm actually really concerned for Wellington that Brisbane could potentially build a lead that makes it a very nervous week for the Wellington Phoenix.
Do you know when they arrived in Brisbane or when they arrived? Because that could be it. They could already be in Brisbane. They could already be ready. Like, we don't know when they get to Brisbane. So we talk about the travel, but now there's no other games or anything. So maybe they've gone to the club and said, hey, can you give us a few more days in Brizzy? Can you give us a few more days to settle? We can get some good training days. I don't know the answer to that.
They did. They flew Auckland United to Wellington to play them in a friendly. Auckland United, the Oceania champions, New Zealand National League champions, and they drew 2-2. So they got a very decent hit out last weekend against a very good women's team. So again, Canberra played a boys team in the build-up to their elimination finally into victory. Wellington played a like-for-like in Auckland United.
Yeah, are they there yet though? I definitely think the travel and actually just like bedding in Brisbane and maybe having 2 or 3 days on the training paddock in Brisbane, feeling a bit more settled rather than arriving the day before, the time difference, getting your recovery, getting your rest, getting the food prep and stuff like that. I don't know the answer.
It'll definitely be a cracker with some big connotations, that is for sure. And the other semi-final on Saturday at 5 p.m, Melbourne Victory hosts Melbourne City at Amy Park. A derby over 2 legs. Delicious. City got the chocolates the last time these two met at Amy. Aish, what are we looking forward to in this one?
A Melbourne derby, as always. I think there's always more on the line when you're playing a derby. There's more up for grabs. These are 2 very well accomplished and successful teams in the A-League, and I think this one is going to be really interesting. 2 different styles of play. We know what Melbourne City bring. I think Melbourne Victory coming into it, as Jeff said, I think they're really hitting form at the right time. And look, the weeks off in between just mean friendlies and more matches, but on the training pitch, you work on everything. Defence, attack, corners, set pieces, all those iterations. You actually get a really good amount of time. You get rest and recovery. You get some friendly matches in to keep things ticking over, but you get to really drill down into the detail day after day without the issue of travel and another game coming up.
We saw the highlights there from the round 10 clash, Teo, but it was a different story in round 17.
It was, because round 10, I think it was the highest standard game in terms of the quality of play of the home and away season. Sadly, round 17 was not. Round 17 was 2 teams just almost staring at each other and waiting for the other to make a move. It was an incredibly frustrating stalemate. This was the best chance for either team to score in the game. And I think the Amy Park factor causes teams to raise their game. I think the reason round 10 was so good, Holly McNamara's best performance of the season as well, is because it's the occasion. It's hosted the last 2 grand finals, but I also think just the better the conditions, the better City play, and then other teams have to go with them. Like, I think Melbourne Victory will be, they won't want their men to get eliminated from the A-League men's finals, but I think Melbourne Victory's women's team would much prefer to play the second leg at Control Cyber Pitch than Amy Park, because the better the conditions, the better the football, and that allows City to play at their best. So, counterintuitively, I actually think City would prefer the second leg at Amy Park as well, whereas Melbourne Victory might like to go back to the burbs, bring out the wind, bring out the weather, and bring out also the mental demons of Melbourne City losing at Control Cyber Pitch in last year's semi-final.
Well, City did lift the Premier's plate on Sunday for a 3rd straight season. It has been a while since they played their last match, Ish. You talked about that break, but Victory seemed to have used the break to their advantage. I'm questioning whether the rust will be an issue for Melbourne City.
I don't think so. I think, as I said before, I think it allows time on the pitch. I think they'll definitely be having friendlies. The City Academy system is so well resourced, it's extensive. So they'll be having games against boys' academy teams, I'm assuming. So it's all in-house. So no one's going to go away and share tactics or anything like that. So they can manipulate their preparation as much as they want, but they've got time together to iron out all those little fine details. But everyone gets over the niggles. Everyone's been at home for a while. They've been able to have meals at home. They're not getting to an airport. They're not travelling. They get to sleep in their own bed with their own pillow. All that stuff, I think it'll refresh them.
Plenty to look forward to. So the question begs to the pair of you, who is going to win leg one of the semi-final in both matches? Your tips, please. Teo, let's start with you.
Look, it's not the done thing in the media to pick a game to be 0-0. So,
boring.
So to be a good sport, it'll be 1-1 between City and Victory. And then I think Brisbane will win by at least 2. I think it's going to be Brisbane 3, Wellington 0. I think it's going to be an extremely tense week with a lot of talk about comeback across the ditch, because I do think that Brisbane have been given a bit of a freebie here to just keep their momentum rolling, and they are going to keep that perfect Queensland record going against the Knicks.
Aish, I would think that your Queenslander heart is shining through and through here.
Yeah, I'm sorry about Priestman and the Knicks. I have to go with the Raw. Of course I have to. I think I was impressed with how they played against Adelaide, and I think through all the injuries and losing players, they've done really well. City and Victory, I liked what I saw with Victory. And again, it's been a few weeks since I've seen City. So even with Jeff's post-match interview, I'll give Victory the win on this one.
Ooh, yeah. Victory as the derby goes down in week one of the semi-finals. That is all we have time for on this week's Dub Zone. A big thanks to Teo Pellizzeri and Alicia Ferguson for joining us and for your insight today. No doubt we'll hear your voices across the weekend, and we'll see you again next week as we recap the first leg of both semi-final matches in the Ninja A-League. Enjoy your football this weekend, be it in Brisbane or Melbourne or on 10 and Paramount Plus. I'm Amy Duggan. I'll see you again next week.